Hello everyone, there are major events happening every day in the Iran war. Today, Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi visited the United States again. However, today we're not going to talk about the news. As for the results of Takaichi's visit to the US, I'll invite a guest tomorrow to analyze them in detail. Today, I want to share with you the story of a beautiful female spy. Some people say she was a Mossad spy. Is that true? Let's keep it a mystery for now, and we'll talk about it at the end of the program. A couple of days ago, a Mossad commentary account on X shared an exclusive interview with a Jewish woman. This account is not Mossad's official account. It's probably a civilian account from Israel. However, it provides a lot of information and updates very quickly, so it already has over 1 million subscribers. In its post, this account said that this Jewish woman once sat face-to-face with the slain Khamenei. This woman is named Catherine Perez Shakdam. She successfully infiltrated the core circles of the Islamic Republic, and what she saw inside Iran should make the whole world feel afraid. There are a few things. The first is her meeting with the regime's leadership. The second is the truth she learned in Tehran. And the third is the warning that the United States must hear. He said, please watch the interview with her. Then, below this post, they shared the full link to the interview. I watched this interview. Actually, after the war on December 12th last year, Paris Chatham also gave an interview to Iran International, an independent media outlet opposed to the regime. His story could absolutely be made into a breathtaking spy thriller. Over the course of 10 years, he single-handedly deceived the top leaders of the Islamic regime, eventually meeting with Ali Khamenei himself and gaining deep insight into the core of this regime. What he saw and heard revealed to him the true nature of the regime and made him eager to tell the world everything he had learned. Now let's share his story with everyone. Before we begin, just a quick reminder. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our daily programs. Also, I'd like to recommend the very popular Red Sea Cucumber Repair Gel to everyone. Jeju Island's Red Sea Cucumber has strong regenerative powers and is packed with growth factors. It effectively repairs bodily damage, restoring cells at the root. Moreover, these are not farmed but wild caught by local female divers. This product is extremely popular. Some viewers have mentioned that they bought it for friends or family who needed to recuperate after surgery, and the results were excellent. Please note, this is not a medicine. It's a nourishing health supplement. When you make a purchase, remember to use my discount code FANGFAI to enjoy a 15% discount. All right, let's talk about Catherine's story. Catherine was born into a Jewish family in France. When he was 11 years old, he lost his mother, and at that moment, his childhood world collapsed. Later, in an interview, he said, I've always been searching for a sense of belonging, a sense of structure. After growing up, he went to the UK and studied at the London School of Economics, earning 2 master's degrees. At that time, he was 17 years old, knew nothing about the world, and was like a blank sheet of paper. He met the first man in his life, a Sunni Muslim from Sana'a, Yemen. He talked about family, morals, children, and the future. To Catherine at that time, this sounded absolutely perfect. He recalled, at that time, it was as if I heard my late grandmother telling me that good girls come from good families, don't date casually, and should get married. So she married him, and they had 2 children. Kathy said that back then, she truly believed this was happiness. Until one day, her ex-husband suddenly said, let's go to Yemen. She was struggling in her career in the UK, felt like she didn't belong, and wanted to return to her homeland for a fresh start. Catherine, out of naivety and also a certain sense of closeness to Middle Eastern culture, agreed. After all, he was Jewish, and the food, smells, and culture all seemed somewhat familiar to him, so he agreed. Around 2002, they moved to Sana'a, the capital of Yemen. After they arrived, everything changed. He described the feeling as if he had traveled back to the Middle Ages, a society that was extremely conservative. Women had to wear headscarves and follow strict gender norms. What he found even more unbearable was the anti-Semitism. At first, her ex-husband's family barely managed to keep up appearances, but after the child was born, their attitude took a sharp turn for the worse. They were ashamed to have a Jewish wife. Except for their closest relatives, no one was told about Catherine. She said, from that point on, I was subjected to extremely harsh treatment. It was truly cruel. I have scars on my body to prove it, real scars. What broke her heart even more was that her ex-husband even abandoned them because the child was Jewish. A Middle Eastern father who should have loved his child the most was willing to abandon his own flesh and blood just because of religion and ancestry. Catherine said, I can't understand why anyone would be willing to abandon such a wonderful child. What's even more frightening is that he personally witnessed how the Islamic Republic of Iran is eroding Yemen like a cancer. Through the Houthis, the Iranian regime rewrote social norms and religious expressions, gradually turning the originally relatively moderate Sunnis into extreme anti-Semites. Catherine witnessed in Yemen how the Golden Age, when this beautiful country was once ruled by Jewish kings for 8 centuries, was destroyed. He began to understand that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism had become completely intertwined. It was not a product of popular sentiment, but the result of systematic indoctrination by the regime. Well, later, she and her ex-husband, her then-husband at the time, got divorced. After the divorce, she said that one morning she woke up and told herself, "I can't keep hiding myself anymore. I've already compromised too much. Except for death, I have nowhere left to retreat. And that day, I didn't want to die, and today I don't want to either." So she decided to fight back, and the only way to fight back was to confront the real culprit directly. The Islamic Republic and Khamenei, she said she began to set a net like fishing. She didn't cast the net, but waited for the fish to bite. She didn't approach them, but exploited the regime's binary logic. You're either pro-America or anti-America. So she wrote an article critiquing the US invasion of Iraq, arguing that America failed to plan its next steps. This article was noticed by the Iranian authorities, and they thought, this young woman is perfect. She's French and she's converted. They believed that although she had converted to Islam, she was still a Western woman and could be used as propaganda material. And so the fish took the bait. She said she first accepted an interview with a channel under Hezbollah. Then she appeared on Russia Today, RT, and also on Press TV, among others. In this way, she completed the entire circuit of media scrutiny by these regimes. She pretended to be a super passionate supporter of Khamenei, and the guardianship system, acting like a devout Shia girl. This made the Iranian authorities think she was harmless and could be used. This was actually the process. For 10 consecutive years, she kept writing articles and commenting on various media platforms, whether neutral, pro-Iranian, or even directly under Iranian control. She would appear on TV and offer commentary. After 10 years, by the end of February 2017, she received an email inviting her to attend the Palestine conference in Tehran. At that moment, she knew she had succeeded. So she went, in February 2017, she went to Iran for the first time. In an interview, she briefly described her experience. She said she took a British Airways flight to Tehran, and when she arrived, she was greeted by people armed with guns and nuclear weapons. They were soldiers from the Revolutionary Guard, and at that moment she was really a bit frightened. But then, of course, these soldiers took her to the VIP lounge and later brought her to a hotel. After that, she went to the Palestine conference. At that conference, he said that all the famous terrorists, the who's who, were there. He said he was only 10 meters away from the Hamas leader Khaled Mashal and listened to him shouting slogans against America and the Jews. At the scene, there were also other extremist organizations present, including those that are extremely anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish. There was an anti-Semitic organization called that Neturei Karta. And then he said there was also an American left-wing group called Code Pink. We've mentioned Code Pink before on our program. It's a very left-wing group in the United States, and they follow Marxist, leftist Marxism, communism, and in all these protest activities, whether it's anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, or even anti-ISIS, you can always find their presence. And of course, there were also many high-ranking Iranian officials present at the scene. Catherine said that at the time, it was actually almost like an unreal experience. He himself is Jewish, but among this group of people, all of them were shouting things like, "Down with America," "No, Jews, Jews," and he said he had to smile. Then he said, "I had to turn myself into someone else." It was like watching himself from the outside as a third person, because as a Jew in that kind of environment, he had to bury his true self in order to survive. That was his first time in Iran. Later on, he went to Iran several more times, going back and forth quite a few times. We can talk more about that later. In short, he went there as a journalist in his capacity as a media professional. After arriving in Iran, he was approached by an important figure in the Iranian propaganda apparatus, a man named Nader. Let's just call him Nader. Nade, Nader. He was a very well-known figure in the Iranian propaganda apparatus, and he was a close friend of Khamenei. For some reason, he took a very good impression of Catherine at the time and opened all the doors for him. From then on, he said he was given absolute access. The Revolutionary Guard didn't dare stop him. He could move about freely, interview anyone he wanted, even including the then presidential candidate Raisi. He said he became the only so-called Western journalist who was allowed to follow Raisi's campaign team 24 hours a day during the election. He said that he even ran into Rouhani and met almost all of Iran's top officials. He mentioned that some people work in the government their entire lives without ever meeting these almost godlike figures. But during his several trips to Iran, he managed to meet nearly all of the top officials. He described his first impression after entering Iran. He said what he saw was a country shrouded in personality cult and darkness. As soon as he got off the plane, he was greeted by huge portraits of Khomeini and Khamenei. The scale of Khomeini's mausoleum was comparable to the Holy Sepulchre. People scrambled to touch the stones, as if worshipping a deity. He said that, in his eyes, the hills of Tehran were shrouded in a suffocating darkness. He said that when you are in Israel, whether in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, the light is different. But in Tehran, it was as if the light had been sucked away, leaving only a sense of heaviness. Then, in the interview, he talked about his two most shocking experiences, which directly tore away the mask of the regime. The first was his private meeting with Khamenei. He said it was in 2017, and he met with Khamenei for what seemed to be more than 30 minutes. He said at that time he was very close to Khamenei, probably just an arm's length away. But he said Khamenei did not shake hands because he doesn't touch women. Later in the interview, Catherine said that Khamenei is not interested in women. He only likes young boys. He said this wasn't something he made up. It was told to him directly by Nader. Moreover, this is Iran's most open secret. So during the meeting, Khamenei asked him two questions. The first question shows just how crazy this regime is. Khamenei asked him, "Do you think God is cruel?" Catherine replied, "Of course not." Then Khamenei continued, "I don't understand why people say that about me. What I do is the same as God, taking away life. You agree, right? Death is just part of the cycle of life." Catherine thought at the time, wow, he's comparing himself to God and believes he has absolute authority over life and death. This left Catherine extremely shocked. The second question, Khamenei asked if he understood the slogan, "Death to Israel." That is the slogan against Israel. Catherine said, "You mean the country, right? The political entity?" "Oh, right." He asked Catherine if she understood the slogan, "Destroy America, destroy Israel." Catherine thought he was referring to the countries, America and Israel, but Khamenei said no. He said it referred to the Israel in the Bible, the descendants of Jacob, that's what he meant. The descendants of Jacob, meaning all their offspring, in other words, the entire Judeo-Christian civilization, billions of people, are considered enemies. This is what he said is the true meaning of Israel and America. So why is America hated? Because America represents freedom, democracy, and hope, and is the biggest obstacle to their export of revolution. Then, in the interview, Catherine said, "When I left that meeting, I realized we were in big trouble, and it was on a global scale. If people want to breathe freely under the sun, this regime must be eliminated. This is not a Jewish issue, not an Israeli issue, and not even just a Western issue. This is a global issue. The goal of this regime is to export revolution. They will not stop until every man, woman, and child is enslaved by their propaganda and belief system. If you don't kneel, they will crush you. This is not a drill. We are facing, truly facing, the greatest threat in human history." He said, "I'm not exaggerating, nor am I trying to scare people on purpose, although I do want everyone to be afraid because we must be extremely vigilant." The second experience that left a deep impression on him was when he was taken to visit a place, Evin Prison in Iran. He said that Iranians have always been like this. Their usual approach is to start with the carrot, praising you, telling you how great and wonderful you are, and then they use the stick to intimidate you. He was taken to the prison, and the person in charge of the prison received him in a luxurious living room, telling him that everyone held inside were enemies of God. Then they took him to an exhibition hall, not to meet real people inside the prison, but to an exhibition hall. In this exhibition hall, surveillance monitors were everywhere, constantly playing all kinds of videos. What kind of videos? They were those terrifying ones full of torture, rape, and screams. Videos. Catherine was terrified when he watched them, but he tried to comfort himself, telling himself that these must be fake, just staged, and he used this reasoning to keep himself from being too afraid. But he said that after the video of Hamas massacring Israelis on October 7th, 2023 was released, he heard the same screams. Only then did he realize, oh, those videos he saw on the surveillance cameras were all real. He said there were men, women, and children in those videos. He said, the scenes I saw, I don't want to see them again. I don't even want to describe them, but I can't forget. Then he said, I want everyone to understand, I didn't do this for the thrill. The reason I did this, he meant disguising himself to enter Iran, was because I love Israel. I love the Jewish people. I want my children to be free. I want them to be able to freely choose their faith without being afraid of being massacred or sent to the gas chambers. Additionally, in the interview, Catherine also mentioned that within the Iranian regime's intelligence agencies and the Revolutionary Guard, there is a department specifically responsible for sexual violence. This department studies how to use sexual violence to achieve their goals, namely to destroy and blackmail people. They have psychologists who specifically study their targets and establish psychological profiles. They know how to destroy and break down each individual. They have discovered, in practice, they found that if you subject a person to extreme abuse, record it and use it to blackmail them, threatening them with various taboos, then force them in order to stop the abuse to inflict the same kind of abuse on someone else. Then you can completely destroy this person's spirit because they cannot accept being both a victim and a perpetrator. Committing such atrocities that even they themselves cannot comprehend, they are ruined. After that, people will go on to do all sorts of twisted things. Aside from these two core experiences, he also observed other high-level insider events. He interviewed Iran's former president, Raisi, and he said that there is a reason why this man is called the Butcher of Tehran. They wake up in the morning and slaughter people simply because they want to. They have no regard for life at all. He has met him and also met Soleimani's daughter. It is said that he is the biggest pimp in this regime, involved in human trafficking networks. In closed-door meetings, officers of the Revolutionary Guard treat this kind of touch as a natural cycle. The entire regime is sustained by fear, personality cult, and sexual pleasure. He said that they have stolen the souls of 80 million Iranians. Women are oppressed and turned into objects. The next generation is brainwashed. Dissenters are locked up in Evin prison, never to see the light of day again. Catherine also mentioned in the interview that some Americans think Iran is so far from the United States it won't affect us. He said actually they've already infiltrated. Their pawns are everywhere, and when the time comes, they'll be activated. They will come for you. He said, do you remember ISIS? What happened in Syria and Iraq was just a rehearsal. Sunni extremism is just one part of the whole picture. The Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are actually working together, aiming to establish a so-called caliphate. They don't care whether you're Sunni or Shia, because what these people want is your freedom. They want to establish a theocratic enslavement that forbids independent thinking. Then he said that this regime is very skilled at psychological profiling, doing it for individuals, groups, communities, and even countries. They understand that the West's love for the values of democracy and freedom can be weaponized. They try to undermine families, they attempt to weaponize feminism, and they join forces with the Western left. So he said that some of the radical leftists in the West are very well packaged, but that's a road to destruction. Now, what this really means is that Muslim terrorism and radicalism are joining forces with the Western left. Then he said, now is the time for America to unite behind Trump. He said, I haven't taken money from anyone. But he said, I'm telling you seriously, you have to support this man's vision for America because it's the only thing that will work. Between 2017 and 2018, Catherine frequently traveled in and out of Iran, totaling about 7 or 8 times, and each stay lasted about 1 or 2 weeks. He said he deliberately kept his stays short to avoid arousing too much suspicion, and also because the oppressive atmosphere in Iran made it hard for him to endure for long periods. Around the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019, he completely stopped going to Iran. The reason was that people inside started to question him, and he himself was gradually unable to keep up the pretense. He said he was on the verge of a breakdown at that time, and he ultimately chose to leave because he was starting to fall apart. He said, "My true self was about to break out, saying I want to be myself. I can't keep pretending like this anymore." Then in 2021, Catherine publicly announced that he was Jewish and admitted that his past actions were aimed at infiltrating the Iranian regime. He first published articles on his own podcast and in the Times of Israel, where he detailed his true identity and experiences. He confirmed that his previous image as a Muslim sympathizer was merely a disguise used to get close to the Iranian leadership. As soon as this article was published, it immediately triggered a strong reaction from the Iranian side. Iranian state media and news agencies quickly deleted all old articles, interviews, and records of cooperation related to him. Senior officials of the Iranian regime and pro-government channels began to label him as a Mossad spy, an Israeli agent, and an infiltrator. Some Iranian parliamentarians and propaganda outlets even spread extreme rumors, claiming that he had relationships with hundreds of officials to steal intelligence and so on. As for the Iranian authorities, from then on, they listed him as the #1 apostate and hostile propagandist, and completely banned his name from domestic media, attempting to erase all traces of his existence in Iran. Later, in several interviews, Catherine said that this kind of erasure response actually confirmed the depth of his infiltration and the embarrassment it caused the regime. In interviews, he emphasized that he is a mother, a descendant of Jewish survivors. With a mother's love, he said no to evil. He admitted that he was indeed gathering intelligence, but to be honest, he said his greatest fear was failure. Because it's not every day that someone like him gets so close to the core of the regime. He met the entire leadership. He said that his fear was that if, after coming out, he couldn't properly convey the information and intelligence he had gathered, so that people truly felt the impact and asked, "What should we do now?" then it would all be for nothing. His 2 children might face the same fate because if their mother fails, those radicals will take control of the West. He said, "Then my children are finished." He said, "As mothers, we want to leave the world better than when we arrived because we have children. This is our responsibility. My responsibility is to swallow the darkness so that my children don't have to." Well, to be honest, how much the information Catherine collected actually helped Israel against Iran, well, it remains quite difficult to determine exactly the precise extent to which this intelligence aided Israel in its strategic operations against Iran. Outsiders believe that the information may have helped Israel with targeted eliminations or strikes against certain government leaders. However, Catherine believes he had one major failure. He said that at the famous Palestinian conference in 2017, he heard Khamenei speak, and Khamenei gave a timeline. He said that a single event would occur to Israel or the Jewish diaspora that would forever change the world. Then, after the events of October 7th, 2023, he realized that this was the incident. That is, they had been planning it all along, but he did not know the exact timing in advance. He only knew that such an event would happen, and he did his best to inform the relevant parties. But there was still no way to prevent it. He said his heart was broken, after what happened on October 7th. Then the interviewer asked him, "Did you try to ask for more information at the time?" He said that at the time he couldn't ask too many questions because with the structure of that regime, if you ask too much, they become suspicious of you. So he had to create an environment where they felt confident or pretend to be clueless for long enough so that they would voluntarily reveal information. He couldn't dig too deep. You can only ask a little, not too much. He said it's like walking a tightrope, your life hanging by a thread. Then, regarding the ongoing joint US-Israeli operation against Iran, called Operation Epic Rage, he said it has truly dealt a significant blow to the Iranian regime. He said that Trump's willingness and support, as well as his support for Netanyahu, changed everything. We are grateful to him. He stopped it. What I thought was inevitable is that he scared the regime out of their wits. Now, what you see is them flailing around. They don't know what they're doing. This regime won't last much longer. He said, "If you want your children to grow up in freedom, please stop this regime and fully support President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, because these two are the last line of defense for the free world." Finally, he said that actually, when the Iranian people took to the streets in 2009, the regime was already on the verge of collapse. This was something high-ranking officials inside Iran told him. On that day, there was tremendous turmoil within the regime. Some people no longer believed that Khamenei could hold on, and everything seemed about to fall apart. In the end, Khamenei manipulated everyone with tears, using emotion to bring them back together. The regime managed to recover, but the people had no idea how close they were to success. Then he said, "This makes me very sad because it's like walking in the dark, not knowing how far the finish line is. When do you stop? In fact, you might be just a tiny bit away from the end." He said, "I want to tell the Iranian people, don't think it's impossible. The finish line is right there. This regime is an empty shell, both structurally and in substance. It's extremely fragile and will collapse with just a push. You already have freedom. All you have to do is say no. I know it's not easy, but they only have the rights that you give them, the rights you grant them. They make you believe you have no other choice, but you do have a choice. The price of freedom is worth it because your children are worth it." All right, so that's Catherine's story. Actually, this story isn't an ending. It's another beginning. And of course, Now, let's return to that key question from the very beginning. Was he a Mossad spy? During the interview, he was asked this question. His answer was quite intriguing. He basically didn't answer. He said, "Why don't you call those people in Jerusalem and ask them?" In another interview, he also replied, "Oh, if you go to my Instagram homepage, there's a photo of me with a great man, the former head of Mossad. A photo of us together." He said, "Well, that's for you to think about yourselves. In other words, if you believe I am, then I am. If you don't, then I'm not." But in my own opinion, he probably isn't, because Mossad never discloses the identities of its current or former agents. You could say it's one of the most highly secretive organizations in the world. Except in movies or literary and artistic works, there are only a very few cases, those who have been retired for many years, like Mossad agents from the various Middle East wars, or from World War II, or those who have already passed away, or whose identities have already been exposed. Aside from those very few individuals, we have absolutely no idea who the Mossad agents are. But regardless of whether someone is a Mossad agent or not, their stories are just as thrilling and dramatic. So I hope that as I tell this story, I hope everyone, like me, finds it incredibly moving and powerful. Such a story also helps us better understand what kind of regime is Iran, really? What kind of regime is this Islamic government of Iran? Perhaps it will also help us better understand the reasons behind the actions taken by the United States and Israel against Iran. All right, that's all I wanted to share with everyone today. As I mentioned earlier, regarding Gao's visit to the US, tomorrow I will invite a guest to provide a detailed analysis. Then, over the weekend, I will also invite Professor Zhang Ping to further analyze the direction of the war situation in Iran, as well as how the Gulf and Arab countries might participate in this conflict and in what ways. Get involved in the conflict. I hope everyone will still like, subscribe, and share our program, and also turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our episodes. All right, see you next time.